Hey everybody, welcome back to Off the Wall. I'm Mike.
I'm Sol.
Yeah, not an excited introduction. We're talking about some stuff going on right now. Before we get going, just let you guys know, here's how this is going to work. We're going to talk about this thing. Everything we're talking about is all, these are we're just reading off the facts that we've got based on interviews and based on what's been reported in the news. Obviously it's a complicated situation. We don't know the truth. We don't know what exactly went on. We can only go off of what has been alleged by the parties involved, and we'll give personal thoughts at the end. But the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to cover what we can point to articles and say has been officially reported on. So with that being said, Jonathan Majors from Creed 3, from Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and Loki, and as Kang, was at one point arrested after allegations of, I believe the official alleged charge was domestic violence of some kind, from I don't know if it was his girlfriend or just a woman he was seeing. That part hasn't been made super clear, but she was taken to a hospital with minor injuries to her head and neck, according to the NYPD. Majors was taken into custody without, this is coming from BuzzFeed, Majors was taken into custody without incident, and the woman told officers that she had been assaulted. I apologize, I butchered his name, Priya Chowdhury, who is Jonathan Majors' lawyer, said in a statement to BuzzFeed News that he is completely innocent and is provably the victim of an altercation with a woman he knows. According to Chaudhry, video evidence of the incident, which occurred within a vehicle, and testimony from witnesses will prove the actor's innocence. The woman also took back her accusation of assault in written statements, Chaudhry said. Chaudhry added that the woman was quote, having an emotional crisis, for which she was taken to a hospital yesterday. That's what's in the BuzzFeed article. I'm going to drop that into the chat as of right now. If anybody would like to read the full article from BuzzFeed, it's there right now in the chat. So now this is what we know based on the incident that's been reported in the news itself. Not much else has been revealed in regards to the incident in question at this time. We haven't heard. We haven't seen any of the videos that his lawyer is claiming exist. We haven't heard the witness testimony or statements that we were told exist. Those will probably not be made public for a bit, until they see whether or not this case progresses forward. But Sol, I know there were some statements that came from a few other people as well, from that had previously, I guess, previously knew Jonathan Majors or worked with him. I'm not sure what the specifics on that are, but you have that in front of you.
Yeah, so there was 2 directors that came out after several news outlets reported that Jonathan Majors was arrested. One director, A.B. Allen, which I'm reading off of the Yahoo News article here. It's like, a rising filmmaker is one of the individuals who had spoken out against Jonathan Majors in the aftermath of the arrest. And the first thing that I guess tweeted out, although it doesn't have a tweet, but it has like a statement here saying, there's a particular actor relatively new on the scene who Twitter has violently fallen head over heels for, who in actuality is a vicious, cruel, abusive human being, both professionally and in his personal life, and every new viral thirst tweet about him drives me insane. Then people put on kind of, we know who he's talking about, and he kind of confirmed in tweets that it was Jonathan Majors who he was talking about when he first made those statements. But later on, he made a statement, A.B. Allen. I regret my overly flippant tone here. I read the words alleged assault in the tweet figured we were talking about a shoving match outside of a bar or something, then posted this. Once I read the details, far more brutal than I expected. I wished I had said something else. Everything I known about has not been physical. It's not a huge leap at all for emotionally violent, professionally abusive people to become physically violent as well, but I was not made aware of it. This is uniquely horrific and very grave. So, kind of going through his original statement and giving a little bit more context to it,
Yeah.
speaking that everything he alleged to before was always emotionally or professionally violent. His quotes, not mine.
Yeah,
Um,
it wasn't a full recant, it was more of
yeah,
a, like, "Oh, when I said this, I didn't know there was this other thing going on.
yeah.
Wasn't talking about that." Like, he was very AB was very deliberate in the word choice of, "I didn't realize there was this heavy-weighted situation going on."
Hmm.
My out of context, like, it
Right.
was a different kinda thing, and
And
then there
he
was
wanted to put his words in context there.
yeah.
Um, Probably was told to for legal reasons too. And
Yeah, because it would be very easy to conflate
yeah.
his statement with the situation we're commenting on right now.
And my thing is being weird now.
Oh, okay.
But okay, here we go. Another director came out with issues with Jonathan Majors. His name is Tim Nicolai. And he says, I'm just going to say this about Jonathan Majors and be done with it. Folks at Yale and the broader New York City community have known about him for years. He's a sociopath and abuser, and that is how virtually everyone speaks about him. It's a shame it took this long for him to be reported. So we do have, which a lot of times too people talk about when things come out who else will speak up
Mhm.
after the, because typically when you do have abuser situations the floodgates open when one person decides to speak, other people come forward. And again, this is a very short amount of time since the story broke,
It's like
so there,
4 days.
yeah, so it's very possible that more people might come out, but so far we have the original person who alleged the abuse and then these two directors that came forward with a little bit more of their thoughts on Jonathan Majors.
Yeah. It's a really complicated situation because, sorry, somebody's at my door, picking up some equipment, and, I need to just message him real quick. Uh, can you comment some more? So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I need to deal with this.
No. And kind of going into personal thoughts on this, it's that it's sad either way. Mike and I both, as he stated earlier in the beginning of this video, we don't know the truth. We weren't there. And so we don't want to accuse either side. I think John Roca put something over, yeah, there's innocent till proven guilty, but there's also a lot of times when people say that, they also don't apply that to the alleged victim as well, that they're truth until proven a liar. And I feel like when you take that innocent till guilty approach, it needs to be applied evenly to both parties.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so we need to both take her alleged claims very seriously and they need to be looked into by a third party that has no gain on what the outcome will be, and also not kind of until things go fully forward on whether it happened or not on his side. And
Yeah.
it's sad either way, because if it is true, this talented actor who I know you've loved to see him on screen, I love to see him on screen. Last Black Man in San Francisco. He's arguably the best part of the new Ant Man movie, and he's a big part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward.
Mhm.
And people are very excited about that. So if it is true, that's really upsetting. And
Yeah.
then if it's not true, this is gonna go with him forward for the rest of his life. It's going to be a weight he carries because there will always, if it's not true, there's always going to be people that believe it is.
Mhm.
Because we've seen that with other cases that come forward that kind of are legally proven not to have been true, but people still believe it either otherwise. And that's also really sad, especially because he's a black man. He's a large black man too. So the stereotypes that's put on that. So either way, I'm like, this just makes me sad, whether it's true or not.
It's a shitty situation
Yeah.
no matter what side of it you're on, no matter what angle you look at it from. And yeah, to kind of reiterate the point you made, like either either it's true and that's not okay. You just don't do
Yeah.
that, or it's not true and that's not okay. Like
Yeah.
I want one thing I'm very fond of saying is that in situations like this, there's three parts to this story. There's
Hmm.
his side, her side, and then there's what actually happened. Uh,
Right.
and that's true of most situations. Um, one thing I've really noticed a lot of with this incident is um the choice of language being used by a lot of different
Yeah.
parties. So to go to the second director you mentioned, not AB, the other one who commented
Yeah.
about being from Yale, I think it
Ye-
was.
Uh, I don't know if it was
You
like a
mentioned something
teacher
about
at Yale, but
yeah,
yeah, a director of
something
his.
about majors at Yale.
Yeah, being a sociopath.
See that right there, the term sociopath, like that's not you can't just throw that word around. Like
Yeah.
first of all, that has to come with a diagnosis. You can't just say someone's a sociopath. Like what because oftentimes we see in life people conflate sociopath and psychopath and
Hmm.
they're not the same thing.
Right.
That's a very it's like the word it's like the R word for sexual assault. Like you don't throw that term around lightly. Um,
Right.
I'm being careful with my word choice for the sake of YouTube.
Yeah.
Not
And
it's so to say that about someone is it's like you better mean that. Like that's
yeah.
a big swing to take at
And
someone.
what all had he done behind the scenes to make you give that word,
Yeah,
like that descriptor word, like how much of a nightmare was he to work with that you
right,
give that descriptor word to him? And is it one of those he was a nightmare to work with, or is it one of those like with a lot of times where like women get labeled difficult to work with when they're just
right,
like asking for things or that? So
right.
it's one of those just like, which is true,
Was
both
he
cases are awful.
Was he being difficult to work with, or was he just standing up for himself? It's a
Yeah,
whole again, like, it's like
yeah,
being a large black man. Was he being aggressive, or was he just standing his ground? Like it's a whole. But
yeah,
we weren't there. We don't know. That's why throwing around a word like sociopath when you're not a psychiatrist, when you're not a mental health professional capable of giving that diagnosis, like just don't do that.
yeah.
You know?
Well, it's very different from the first director who was like wanting to be very clear with
Yeah,
his description of Jonathan Majors, saying, I want to be very clear that it was not anything physical, it was all verbal, emotional, professional
yeah.
abuse, which I can really appreciate that being like, hey, let me like not mince words. I want what I'm saying to come across very clearly. He was professionally not okay.
I look at these two statements from these other directors, and I look at the first one from was it AB, uh,
AB, yeah.
AB. I look at that statement, and I'm like, this is a statement that was maybe ill timed, but
Yeah.
choice of words was deliberate, and then
Mhm.
when the I don't want to call it this whenever the second statement the context supplying quantifying second statement of I want to be clear about what I'm talking about here. I wasn't aware
Yeah.
of this
Tim
other
Nikolai.
thing. Yeah, thank you. But when AB made his second statement clarifying the first one, it was again in the pursuit of I want to be very clear about my word choice here, as opposed to the
Mhm.
second statement from Tim Nikolai, you said.
It's let me pull that back up here. Tim Nikolai, yes.
Nikolai, that statement just comes across as flagrant and just hyperbolic and fire fanning,
Yeah.
like getting in 2 cents. And as opposed to the first statement, which felt like a contribution to the conversation, the second one just felt like just I got something to add. It didn't feel like it was helping or her. It was just a statement that didn't serve any purpose other than to it felt personal is what it is. It felt like somebody
Mm.
was taking something personal because when you talk about difficult to work with and I get people from like my old job who were a nightmare to work with, but I wouldn't go as far as to say they were a sociopath or abusive. They were just a dick.
Yeah.
So
And it's very, and like a lot of actors and famous people, like that we've learned, like say, like don't meet your heroes because they are
yeah,
dicks in real life. So it's very, I could 100% believe like if he was like he was an asshole, if that was the statement, I'd be like, yeah, that tracks for
yeah,
actors. One that really about word choice that really got me was the lawyer though.
same,
Because
same.
lawyers, especially if they're good lawyers, which I have no reason not to believe that
Know nothing about
Chowdhury is
her.
not a
Yeah,
good lawyer. I haven't looked her up or seen what her
googling her,
previous cases
googling
or
her
whatever.
right now, but I know nothing about lawyers.
Yeah. And so good lawyers are very careful with their words.
Mhm.
And some of her word choices was very interesting to me.
Yeah. Me too. I like the fact that when we've seen similar incidents like this occur for the decades of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And in the past, when we've seen these, not every time, but a lot of times when these things happen, we hear phrases like, it's a misunderstanding. It's not as bad as people are making it out to be. Things like that are just kind of like, they're not denials that it happened. They're saying it's happened, but it's not what you think it is, which is it's a weird way to try and avert guilt, or as opposed to
Right.
Priya Chaudhry, who's basically saying it didn't happen and we're going to prove it didn't happen. It's very,
Yeah.
stamping on the ground and saying absolutely not, which then has me saying, okay, well then put up or shut up. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like if you were going to say 100% this is not this is not what happened and we're going to prove it, okay, well don't miss. Like,
Yeah.
do not miss, because if it comes across with any amount of ambiguity at this point, it's going to say, well, you said definitively it didn't happen, your evidence proved it didn't happen. Well, this is I don't know, we haven't
Yeah.
seen it yet.
And it's very possible that like we won't see any of this because it needs to be looked at
Oh yeah,
whether
yeah,
like by the people that be to determine fault or what maybe the fact too that she said the woman took back her accusation and the only account of that is coming from his lawyer as well. So I want to see where that is from the actual woman herself.
yeah,
Like
me too.
if it's written, and especially to in a written statement, where are those statements kind of, even if you have to redact the statements, it should be something of like, are we just to take your word on this? Like you're representing him. Of course you're gonna represent him in the best light possible.
Mm.
So like you said there, and it could be a while because of the way the law works and the way like
And something like that, we might never see this written.
exactly.
We probably won't ever
Yeah.
see that, because that's the way the law works. It's the way
Right,
it's
exactly. And so it's just one of those where there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of, and I think the least important part is how is this going to affect Kang in the MCU? That's the
okay.
least important part
You know what?
of
They've recast people before. They will recast them again.
I mean, look at Rhodey.
Yeah, Don Cheadle took over for Terrence Howard. They recast Scott Lang's daughter for Ant-Man.
Yeah.
They when William Hurt died, his role is being taken over by Harrison Ford for Thunderbolts. It's happened. It will continue to happen.
Yeah.
There were two different actors playing Tony Stark's dad at the same time. I mean,
Yeah.
but also, who cares?
Who cares? Yeah. In
We'll
the grand scheme of that, who cares? Because it's either you have a person abusing another person, human being, and
Mhm.
that's not okay, or you're having the defamation of a man.
Yeah,
So like either way, like
there's
not good.
like worst case scenario number one, Jonathan Majors did a violent, disgusting thing and should be held accountable for it. Worst case scenario number two, somebody fabricated this in the interest of just taking someone down for the sake of taking someone down because of whatever mental issues or whatever we're talking about here. And that's equal parts not okay.
Yeah,
Because especially in this day and age, that is the kind of thing that follows somebody around for the remainder
forever.
for them in
Yeah,
their life. What I will say, since we're on that topic, is I do think that it's gonna be interesting to see how Disney Marvel play this out, because
yeah,
this is very, because they're Warner Brothers DC is dealing with the Ezra Miller thing, and they've already had to deal with
yeah.
the Amber Heard thing, and they've caught a lot of public flack for that.
Mhm,
Marvel Disney is going to be looking at that situation and saying, and also when you take into account they've already got egg on their face from the James Gunn situation
mhm.
which is completely different, but they already had an
Yeah,
instance of firing somebody immediately and then having to, like, oh, it was all bring you back. They're not
yeah.
gonna they're not gonna make that mistake again. So any movement they do make on this will not happen until like the conclusion of this whole process, whatever that conclusion is. If,
Right.
if it turns out, yeah, no, all
And you
bullshit.
know for sure all of those heads, even Kevin Feige is probably like, "Fuck, why do you," like,
I know.
yeah, which
It's
is such bullshit, but I mean, that's how these companies look at it.
yeah.
And
It's 6:30 on the East Coast right now on Monday. They've already had 10 meetings about this at
yeah,
least.
and it is gonna be very interesting too, because I know that privately, I don't know how publicly vocal, because I'm not like when we review the Flash movie, I'm not going to be reviewing it because I'm not watching that movie because I'm not, even though it's going to make a billion, maybe $2 billion worldwide, I'm not going to have any of my money be a part of that because there's actual, just like I said, when like before where when accusation comes the floodgates open and there's literal like people from all over the world who have come up to talk about Ezra Miller grooming or the abuses that he's had in Iceland and Germany and Hawaii, in Vermont, to a native girl, to another
Mhm.
girl, I think in Massachusetts. Don't quote me on that, what state it is on that last one, but like a mother that came forward. So, like, to me, it's very different in a sense.
Mhm.
And it's probably because we're at the very early stages. So is it going to be like an Ezra Miller where months down another person comes forward and then a few months down another person comes forward and so on and so forth? Or is this going to be just this woman's accusation and then these two directors and that's it?
Mhm.
And it could be very much that he is a dick behind the scenes, but emotionally and verbally, but not physically. That's very possible. Or it
Yeah.
could just be he's a dick in all manners, both emotionally, verbally, professionally, and physically. So it's one of those where we have to wait and see.
Yeah.
And anyone that's making a determinative, he's innocent or she's lying or uh he for sure did this,
Yeah.
they're doing it for clicks and likes and like for because to me it's one of those that we don't know the facts yet and it's horrible either way,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna be upset either way because it's either another woman being abused or it's another woman crying wolf and making it harder for women who are abused to come forward. So
Which
either way, it fucking sucks.
it does. I just again to because we're commenting on like stuff that's being reported. So, um, this came from the Los Angeles Times. The I guess Majors was a part of like the U.S. Army recruiting commercials or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess he was a part of that. The Army has announced they're suspending those commercials for the time being. Their statement is, quote, while Mr. Majors is innocent until proven guilty, prudence dictates that we pull our ads until the investigation into these allegations is complete, which I get.
Yeah. And I'm okay with anyone who decides in the same sense of like the James Gunn part where like I viewed it as wrongfully terminating him, but they did bring him back. So they kind of like righted the wrong in that sense. I can completely understand saying, "Hey, we don't know the facts of this, so we're going to
Yeah.
pause it, and if everything is cool, we'll re put it like up." So I'm those kind of measures I have no problem with.
Well, to speak on this from some actual experience I had. So, in 2019, I made a short film that did pretty well. We got a lot of award buzz. It was circulating pretty well. It was doing very well. A couple years later, the lead actor, whom had we had gotten several awards for, was arrested and charged with uh, several charges of domestic violence, which he pled guilty to. And it was through that investigation we also learned that he had pled guilty several other times in the past in other states to domestic violence. And this was not known to us when we made the film. When all this stuff came out, I pulled the film. I took it out of festival circulation. It's back up on YouTube now, but it has no advertising attached to it. I make no money off of it. It's just there, because at this point he's served his time and he's out of prison now. Um, it was not an easy decision to make because on the one hand, it's like here's this thing I put blood, sweat, and tears into
And
that
other people as well.
that a lot of people did. Like our camera crew worked very hard on it. We had several other actors. I mean, like a lot of work and a lot of people's time and effort went into making that. And it's a shitty situation when the terrible actions of one person affect the work of a lot of other people. And this was a small, short horror film that I made. But ultimately, I decided that until the the legal process had seen its way to the end, to where there had been a
Mm,
trial or a plea deal of some kind, to where charges were filed and time was served. Once the, for lack of a better word, just desserts had been served, was when I was like, okay, I'm going to put this back up just because it is something I need, that I am proud of and that a lot of people did work on.
yeah.
I just don't collect ad revenue from it on YouTube because I'm not going to profit off of, I'm not profiting anything, but I'm not going to play that part. So when it comes to studios and filmmakers being on the fence about how to proceed in terms of
Yeah.
like the Ezra Miller Flash situation, because they talked about they shouldn't release the film, or in this case,
Because they spent so much money making the film already.
it's and there's and like my film had a crew of 10, had a cast and crew of 10 people. Like the Flash has thousands
Yeah.
and millions of dollars. So I get the idea of like, and also this, it's a studio that's already in the red. So I understand like we got to try to make money back. Needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So I get that with Jonathan Majors and being such a big integral part of everything with Marvel Disney going forward, they are weighing those options right now. But
Mhm.
we've also seen situations where they've people rectified that when Kevin Spacey's whole thing went down, they digitally replaced him with Christopher Plummer, who then went on to be nominated for an Oscar for his digital replacement of Kevin Spacey. So
Yeah.
stranger things have happened. All to cycle
Yeah.
all of this back to the Jonathan Major situation, it's just too goddamn early.
Yeah.
Until this evidence that his lawyer says they has is presented, until they say, until the law enforcement comes out and says, due to the evidence presented, we're dropping the charges or we're moving forward with charges. It's impossible to say. I'm not going to sit here and
Yeah.
condemn a man who I don't know him personally, and I don't know all the facts because I wasn't there. So I'm not going to necessarily condemn Jonathan Majors, but I'm also not going to condemn the accuser either. I believe the accuser in the sense that we should investigate it until we know for sure definitively whether or not anything actually occurred. And until then, I just simply don't have an opinion on either party because that's not for me to decide who's right and who's
Right.
wrong.
And to add to that, it's going to be very interesting to see the coverage of this going forward because he is a black man, whether he is guilty or not.
Yeah.
The what the people's thoughts and word choices and the way they speak about it is going to be I'm going to be looking at that very closely because and it's hard not to put it with the Ezra Miller stuff. I think part of the stuff that saves Ezra Miller in a lot of people's eyes, or the way that it's reported, is because they are white, kind of thing. And it's very, you can even see it between people that have pled guilty for things and are like actually on trial,
Mhm.
not getting the same amount of coverage that he's getting now as a black man. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be very interesting whether he's guilty or not, the way they cover it and the way it's spoken about, because I really don't want it to be conflating like he did this because he's black or things of that nature.
Yeah.
Which no one's gonna overtly say that, but they're very sly with the word choices
Oh,
that they use.
we're gonna see some
Yeah.
wordplay. We're gonna see
Yeah.
some wordplay, and I'm not here for it. It's not.
No.
I'm not here for any of that. I'm where I'm sitting right now is that, and it's impossible to not compare it to the Ezra Miller situation because
Yeah.
they're too damn similar.
Mhm.
But also looking at the outcome of the Ezra Miller situation, with Ezra Miller, you have, hit the Flash is such a, hey guys, once the Flash comes out, we can be done with it forever.
Right, right.
Like, it's
So,
our reset button. So all we got to do is just get it out, and then we can just say, by the way, Ezra, yeah, you're done, and just never
although
speak
it is possible
again.
they keep him forward, so we have to wait and see what they do.
Because to go off that, we also know that Ezra, was arrested, is still facing trial, and and Warner Brothers and DC have said, like, we're basically going to be keeping an eye on him.
Mhm.
They've made this pledge or whatever to get their shit together, and and right now Warner Bros. DC's kind of like, all right, well, you step one toe out of line, like, you
Yeah.
better shape the hell up. In
Mhm.
the event Jonathan Majors is guilty of this, like we're gonna have to
Mhm.
wait to see what happens with the actual criminal
Yeah.
charges, whether what kind of moves Disney and Marvel make. Because while,
Or even if there's a plea deal too.
yeah, like, whatever it comes to that, because that's gonna affect everything. Because yes, Kang, because remember, Kang is a big part of the MCU, not Jonathan,
Jonathan Majors, no.
and he hasn't been around enough that he can't be recast easily.
Right.
He's only actually been in a couple minutes of an episode of Loki and part of one Ant-Man movie. There
Yeah.
is and I'll
And
let,
he's gonna be in season 2 of Loki, and I can see them still going forward with that.
because at this point that's done and ready to go.
Yeah.
And that could be one of those things where they just say, like, hey, look, he's going to be in Loki season 2. We're aware of this. He's getting
Yeah.
recast and everything going forward. Or they pull a Christopher Plummer and CGI him out with somebody else.
Yeah. Which I think is the very Disney, not that I have like hope in any corporation, but I feel like if Disney's going to recast, they would put a statement out like that, where
Yeah.
that's the one thing that like Warner Brothers, I think very much they're waiting to see how this movie happens to then make a decision on if they're going to recast him or not.
Yeah.
Because I can very much see them, we made so much money, we're keeping him. And I can see them going, we didn't make as much money, so
Which,
we're not keeping him. Or
and
we didn't make any at all. So
yeah.
that's not going to be the case, but
Which
you
is
know,
really easy to pin on Ezra Miller and say,
yeah,
we didn't make a lot of money. You were probably part of the reason.
yeah.
I
But
mean,
I can
Lucas
see
Sarah
them, yeah,
well,
because they very much could say, have a statement going forward. He's going to be recasted, but this movie still plays a very pivotal role for everything going forward.
it's the needs of the many argument again, because, like, yeah,
Yeah,
it is a movie, but the movie is also tied to their business. And so with Jonathan Majors, it's they're not going to make it's, and again, having had to have learned their lesson from the James Gunn situation where they knee-jerk reaction fired somebody and it bit them in the ass a little bit,
hmm,
where they almost had an entire movie's cast and crew walk. And then they
yeah,
had to reorganize all their own plans because in the time that he was gone, James Gunn was like, cool, I started something else. You're on my timetable now. They had,
right.
they had to rearrange
He's probably so happy they did that because he wouldn't be at DC now or done the stuff that he's done with DC if that
100%.
didn't happen.
So they're going to be they're going to be holding until they definitively have an educated idea of what went down.
Mm,
We're not going to see a move from Disney or Marvel because they don't want a repeat of that situation. And they
yeah,
want to make sure they can hold their heads high and say they handled their situation better than Ezra Miller's, because it's not like Ezra Miller where we had body cam footage.
right.
This is
Although there's alleged footage, will we ever see it? Who knows?
yeah, it's probably good. They say they were like in a taxi or an Uber or something. It's probably dash cam footage because a lot of taxis
Mhm.
have internal cameras now for specifically this kind of situation, and
Yeah,
because drivers keep getting assaulted too. So let's stop that while we're at
yeah.
it.
There's been drivers that get accused of being assaulted and be like, nope,
Yeah, I'm also curious
it
who's
didn't happen in this cab.
yeah. His lawyer, Priya Chaudhry, said she's got witnesses too that can. So I'm like, well, who the
Yeah,
hell are these witnesses? Were there other people in the car? Is it the driver? Like,
right.
again, a lot of this we're probably going to find out about way after the fact.
Yeah, 100%.
There's probably a pretty good chance that like this evidence has already been turned over to whoever needs to see it.
Yeah,
Because again, it's been 4 days. When a situation like this, his lawyer probably was moving pretty damn fast to,
yeah,
because that's a high profile client. So she's going to want to nip this in the bud as quick. And he probably does too. And Disney and Marvel want him to as well. So
yeah. It's gonna be interesting too to see if Disney, Marvel, they have their own lawyers with their own lawyers, if they do anything.
they're there to protect Disney and Marvel. They're not
Yeah,
there to
but not
protect the
yeah.
actors.
But like I said, when floodgates can open on the side of something happening during that shooting.
Yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting to
Yeah,
see because now at that point we're getting into like contract stuff that I don't have a lot of working knowledge of. So I don't know.
yeah. But I'm saying like if obviously these directors came forward claiming the way he behaved working with him, it could be directors or other castmates or crew could come forward with something if anything happened.
And every
So it's
time,
like
go ahead. I'm sorry.
one of those where if you're a studio, if their lawyers come forward with a statement on anything, if anything comes forward based on that.
Mhm.
So now I'm just thinking in the future, like, how are all these stuff going to play out? There's multiple scenarios. We are in it was a Kang variant. We
Yeah.
have
And
that there's timelines of what can come forward, and that's going to be interesting to see what
and
comes
every
forward.
time a person comes forward, that's just dragging out the process even more because
Mhm.
now, as part of a criminal investigation to establish a pattern of behavior, they're going to talk to these other people who have come forward and
Yeah,
said, "Well, you said this happened. You made a generic statement that something happened. Well, we need to know what actually happened.
right.
Did he throw slurs and abusive language around, or was he just a dick? Like, you know, did he actually hit somebody? You called him a sociopath. What are you basing that on? Like
Yeah,
now that these and if more people continue to come forward one way or the other, whether they come out as character witnesses in his favor or come out as character witnesses in the alleged victim's favor, in the accuser's favor, like that just drags the process out even longer.
mhm,
So until, like I said, unless his lawyer comes up with this video footage that is him being an absolute saint and getting out of the car and walking away, and then her like hitting herself or something, like
yeah,
whatever it might be, unless it's some truly like world defying evidence that comes forth, this is probably going to go on for a bit.
yeah, and also finding out if she actually recanted.
Which I got to say, if she's a lawyer worth the salt that stuff I've been googling since we started alleges to that she is, to lie like that would be the end of her career. hands down, and could potentially put her in contempt of court and land her in jail. So I'm inclined to say if she's making a statement like that publicly, I have a very hard time believing it's not true.
Yeah. And
Just
if
because
she did
because
recant, why did she recant?
yeah.
Is it a recant because it didn't happen and she's like, "Oh fuck, this is going forward like this?" Or
Right.
is it a recant of I'm scared of what might happen and I just don't want to deal with this, so let me just recant.
And you recant, you recant. I mean, and
Yeah.
again, it's you can recant for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
Some people recant because they're like, "Oh God, I didn't want to make it this whole big thing. Maybe it really is not as big a deal." Who the
Mhm.
hell's to say? None
Right.
of us were there. So, but if she recanted and the charges get dropped, it's one of those things of unless something else comes out, because
Yeah.
then
It's kind of like you're on notice now. Like you have a
yeah,
warning. If anything else comes forward,
yeah.
now you're in deep shit.
Well,
But if
if she,
this is the only thing and you're squeaky clean going forward,
yeah, like
then
I'm gonna do my best not to hold it against you, but
right.
you know, because people there's a difference between because I think language is very important in this because
Yeah.
people, men and women, and wherever you fall in that alike, it sounds to me like they were out on night on the town having drinks, whatever. People get drunk and get into scuffs all the time. It doesn't necessarily make them a violent person or a bad person. We've all gotten, well, maybe not you, because I don't think you've ever really gotten hammered, but like I've gotten drunk and argued with people before, and I've gotten drunk and punched a hole in the wall because I was
I
fucking
think
something. But
a
like,
very big like one thing that I can point it to in the because I am a big soccer, football
true,
fan. The former head coach of the U.S. men's national team, Greg Berhalter,
yeah,
was blackmail. Well, blackmail not is the correct term because words are important, and we need to know the meanings of words. But what they were told, it was pretty much like came forward like, "Hey, I'm going to tell this thing that happened in your youth." And there was his now wife back then when he was 18, 19 years old,
hmm,
like physically assaulted his then girlfriend, now wife.
yeah,
They broke up. He then went to his coach,
mhm,
did several things, like months later got back together, but like it was very much of a long process of trying to better himself and become a better human being. So what he did, terrible, but it's for his wife to forgive, not for us to forgive. Kind of
all
thing. And
yeah,
then that and no charges, no nothing. And so people there was this huge investigation obviously that happened in the US Soccer Federation because this came forward even though it was something that happened 30 years ago.
mhm,
And obviously they were like we don't agree with why he did what he did back then, but he's obviously atoned for it and he's married to the woman now. And there's
yeah.
been no evidence of him ever doing it again.
Yeah, the only other 2 points I really wanna make is one, what we're talking about here reminds me of, was it 2017, 2018, the Aziz Ansari,
Yeah.
when, like, the Me Too movement was really rearing its head and kicking into gear, Aziz Ansari got swept up in that, and what turned out to just be it was a woman claimed, sexual assault, rape, and then in her own statement, it was like, "Oh, he didn't do that. It was just bad sex, and you know it was we did this, and it was really bad, and I was uncomfortable." And it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, so you had bad sex."
Yeah.
Like, all that really tells me is that Aziz Ansari has no game. Like that's what that says to me. And it was cleared up, and it was all she was like, and when some
Yeah.
basically
But
explained that to
it's
her.
that still follows him.
It does. It's people
Yeah.
still bring that up, and it's like, yeah, guys, that's not what happened.
Right.
But it's
And
that idea of you
so
can't
yeah.
unring the bell.
Yeah, exactly. And if it is something that he did, he should have the consequences for that.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. And if you never
If
want to watch a movie with him again or any of that, well within your right.
yeah,
I hope that if he did do it, that he seeks the help for his anger issues and
if he did
becomes a
it,
better
fuck
human
him.
being. But still, yeah, fuck him.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna trust him.
No.
But in the same sense with like the Greg Berhalter story, like he
Yeah.
did do that to his wife.
Yeah.
But he's now still with his wife and never did anything like that ever again, apparently. So it's one of those like these
We
are all gray areas.
we are very much a people. We live in a land where where the idea is that even if you fuck up, however the degree, whatever the degree of the fuck up is, whether it is you drove drunk and wrecked your car or did a terrible violent thing to another human being, the whole point of the American legal system is you do the crime, you do the time with the intent that while you're doing the time, you get your shit together and become
Yeah.
a better person. We
You
all
paid
know
your
that,
debt to society.
yeah. Well, as we all know full too well, that's not how it actually works.
Yeah.
You do the time, and then you, no matter what you do for the rest of your life, that will always define you.
Yeah.
So my hope is that in a perfect world, in a
Yeah.
truly perfect world, it's one big, huge, dumb misunderstanding that got blown way out of proportion.
Yeah.
Life is not that simple. Life is not that cut and dry.
Yeah.
What we're going to see have happen here was either he did a bad thing, in which case I want him held responsible for it,
Hmm.
or he didn't and is being falsely accused to some degree, and the person making an allegedly false accusation needs to be held accountable for that,
Hmm.
whether it's like, whatever the consequence, whether it's she's got mental issues, whether she was just hammered, whether she was just whatever the situation
Yeah.
might be, just want the correct outcome for it, mostly so that we can all move on with our lives.
Yeah. And what's in my last thing is what's really interesting is some of the same people that were calling him gay and
Oh
calling and
yeah.
yeah, like for wearing pink and saying this is what male society has come to is allowing
Woke
for
Marvel,
things like
woke
this.
Marvel.
Woke Marvel, because I 100% know what that word means when I use it to
Totally. Yeah.
100 are
Woke
now coming
Marvel.
to
So
his
just Marvel?
defense.
Yeah. Oh
And it's
yeah.
and it's very funny to me. It's just like you were literally like, "Oh, this gay F word." Like
Mhm.
this woke man like and now you're
It's
like
gross. It's so
and
gross.
it's very gross. So, yeah, people are weird. People say some dumb shit. People do some dumb shit.
Guys, can we all just get along? I mean, come on. Jesus Christ. Can we just not?
Yeah. So,
I
yeah,
hate this. I hate this so much.
I hate it.
Every time one of these
Especially too
situations,
because like I know you liked Ant-Man way more than Boggs and
way
I
more
liked it way more than Boggs did,
yeah.
but he was the best part, and it made me excited for the future. And so, like, even though I said that's the least important thing, that still like is a thing.
That's what this channel's all about. I mean,
Yeah.
and it goes to the whole. It's like I kind of just wish this wasn't a situation we had to even fucking be in, but we're in it.
Hmm.
I hope the truth comes out.
Yes.
Whatever the truth might be, I hope the truth comes out. I I
Yeah.
I I don't rightfully care what the truth is.
Yeah.
I just hope the truth comes out. I'm not necessarily rooting for him to get busted, and I'm not really rooting for him
Hmm.
to be cleared either.
Right.
I mean, I
Ye-
obviously if he's guilty, I hope he's found guilty. If he's innocent, whatever the truth is, I want
yeah.
the truth to come out.
Right. Exactly. It's one of those like if you're rooting for a side,
Yeah. No,
What's wrong with you?
I root for the
Um,
side of truth.
yeah, it's one of those, let the truth come out, let it be swift, let it be just,
Mhm.
and let it affect the least amount of people possible
Yeah,
going forward.
yeah, so that we can all move on
Hmm.
and not have to think about it because it's
Exactly.
not something fun to think about. Anyway, that's our 2 cents
Yeah.
on this situation. It sucks. It's annoying. It's a nightmare. Hey, as you guys, if you guys are leaving comments on this video, please be civil. Is all we
Hmm.
ask. Let's keep it. Let's keep. I know. I'm asking a lot of YouTube, but try to be civil in the comments. YouTube. It's not
Be
hard.
nice to each other, even if you disagree.
You can. Yeah, it's really easy to do. It's super easy to do. Just be nice. Thank you guys for those who watched live. If you're still here, if you're watching on the replay, thank you as well. Love to hear your polite, civil thoughts down below in the comments, whatever they might be. Speak your truth. Just speak it nicely. That's all I ask.
Yes.
We're gonna be done with this because I hope this is the last time we have to talk about this
Yeah.
for a while, if not ever. We will see you guys again here next time on Off the Wall.